Welcome once more to the sideboard here at the Orlando Standard Open. We're on Sunday, but we actually saw Lou Laskin here yesterday on the feature match arena, and you're playing the same deck today, and we managed to get the time for a deck tech. So why don't you go ahead and just give us the rundown of what you're playing. It's Nightshade Peddler, Staticaster, but pretty different from everything we've seen before.
There's a little bit of a spin on it. I knew with all the Reanimator going around, Lingering Souls, big target, and lots of Naya aggro, so I wanted to play a deck with Staticaster and Reckoner, but I wasn't quite getting it done with blue, white, red, so I put it into another shell and slowly added Peddlers until I came to this mess. And the idea is sort of like a bunch of different small combos. You play out like a mid-range deck and occasionally just combo your opponent out. The main combos are like Peddler and Staticaster is really powerful. Reckoner actually adds a little bit to that combo. Say you're playing a Thragtusk mirror and your opponent has a Thragtusk in play and you have a Thragtusk in play, and you don't want a Staticaster Death Touch both of them. You can actually link your Peddler to your Reckoner and then using the Staticaster shoot your Reckoner to choose which creatures you kill one by one. Likewise, without Death Touch, you can just shoot your Reckoner with your Staticaster, send it to your opponent's face at the end of their turn or whenever you need to.
Yeah, that's definitely a unique take on it, and I think one of the biggest gains is Ground Assault by far, which is a removal spell that we haven't seen many people playing in Standard, but I mean, Mizzium Mortars is what people are reaching for in a lot of cases. Dread Boars, like these spells see plenty of play. How do you think Ground Assault ranks against them?
In this particular deck, it's outstanding. I started with some mix of Mortars and Pillars, and then moved to just Mortars, and then tried one to Ground Assault, then it became two, and yesterday I was playing 2-1 split between Assault and Mortars. But with all the Staticasters and Peddlers, more often than not, you are killing most of the small things on their board, so you don't need to kill a ton of big things at once. You need a spell to kill Angel of Serenity, though, once they get rid of your Peddler. Just so happens that Ground Assault is able to kill Angel of Serenity, or Obsidat if they leave it in play, but it's also able to shoot your Reckoner for however many lands you have in play.
Yeah, basically duplicating the Harvest Pyre Reckoner trick that made waves at the Pro Tour.
Exactly.
One of the other tricks from that Pro Tour you have access to is Blasphemous Act. I know yesterday I think you were playing like a 1-in-1 split, and now you went down to just one. Has just having the one-of bullet combo potential been enough, or is it just you don't feel the pyroclasm effects are that great in the room?
Blasphemous Act is pretty awesome. Sometimes you just randomly win games with it, and occasionally you can be behind on board and it resets the board. Obviously you don't cast it when you're ahead, so it's one of those spells. Definitely does work. It's been impressive, but I wouldn't play more than one just because of how much mana it costs in the situational.
Yeah, definitely situational. You have several bullets, actually. I shouldn't say one more. Thunder by Hellkite, you've got 1-in-1 there. Pretty good card. We saw John Cuvelier, make the finals with Jund playing Thundermaw Hellkites, even cut a Thragtusk.
Yeah.
So, how has Thundermaw Hellkite been in this deck? Obviously, it too is a Nightshade Peddler potential bond.
Right. Like I was saying earlier, it's there's a lot of Lingering Souls in the format. Yeah. The Reanimator decks especially rely on having Lingering Souls tokens in play to Craterhoof. And so, yeah, Hellkite is just absolute monster at clearing the souls out of the way. And like you said, you compare it with Peddler. A couple rounds ago, I was playing against the Prime Speaker deck, and he played a Sigarda, and I was like, oh no, how do I beat that? I just pair these up and kill it. So yeah,
very easy.
Pretty cool.
That's actually pretty powerful too, just against Reanimator. It kind of forces them to address a naked Peddler in play like at all times. They just have to assume that you're going to be able to kill their guys somehow.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it deals with Angel of Serenity, which I said was a big problem earlier.
Your Singleton Bullet, Angel of Glory's Rise. Obviously, you only have the one,
right.
And Graveyard Hate's kind of at moving to an all-time high, I think, for Standard. So how has this Angel actually been working out?
He's been pretty wonderful. So you're not actually a graveyard-based deck, but you happen to have the Angel of Glory's Rise. The only main deck Graveyard Hate that people are playing right now is primarily Ground Seal. And when Angel comes into play, it doesn't target. It actually just picks up your entire graveyard and puts it into play. And a lot of times against like Jund or Naya, you get to these points in the game where they have Spirit a bunch of your dudes and you grind each other out and there's not much going on. And an Angel will single-handedly end the game, bringing back, even if it's just like 1 or 2 Peddlers and a Staticaster and a Huntsman, just an overwhelming board presence for anyone trying to attack you.
Makes sense. You're no stranger to ambitious mana bases. We've seen you with some pretty greedy ones, and this deck is obviously a 4-color Boros Reckoner deck, basically.
Right.
So, I guess walk us through, how do you go about building a deck with this kind of mana?
The mana and the cards in the deck continually evolved over the course of. I guess specifically the Staticaster Peddler Reckoner version evolved over 2 weeks of playing it, but I've been playing some combination of these colors, doing like 4-color Sphinx's Revelation since whenever Return to Ravnica came out. For this particular deck, you know that you want every card in your every land in your deck to be able to cast Boros Reckoner, and so you sort of have to figure out what base color is my mana, and you look at the deck and you're mostly trying to cast green and red spells, especially with Farseek. It's pretty important to be able to consistently add green mana onto. So as long as you're making sure that you have green and red sources, then from there you just sort of have to figure out how can I fit blue mana and white mana into this deck. But Cavern was actually a huge help. Cavern's been dominating Standard, and it's sort of colorless, and sometimes people can have trouble casting their spells because of Cavern. But it's an all-star in this deck because all of the spells are pretty easy to cast,
Most
except
of them are creatures.
right? Except for Staticaster and Reckoner, but they're both wizards, so everything works out pretty well.
Excellent. It's actually been amazing to me how powerful Cavern's been in Standard recently, because the card was ostensibly printed as a reaction to Mana Leak, a card it did very little to actually change anything regarding. But now counter spells are still good in Standard, and Cavern's just wrecking decks that rely on them, especially in this deck, which leads us over to your sideboard, where you have a very spicy option for Cavern of Souls, where you can change it over to Human for Kessig Cagebreakers. How many? First off, how many wolves did you make yesterday? Like, what was your max in a game?
I think the most I had in play was 11 simultaneously entered the battlefield, tapped and attacking.
Modest.
Cagebreakers is actually absurd. I was debating between Cagebreakers and Geist as a card to target blue, white, red, Jund, and Esper. The deck really does well with with Reckoner, Peddler, Staticaster.
Sure.
It does well against aggro decks. And then you have Huntmaster and Thragtusk to clean up the life that you lost. And against Reanimator, you have the same thing, Staticaster, Peddler, which is really powerful. But, when you play 1/1s and 0/3s, you suffer against Supreme Verdict decks.
Yeah.
So I needed one card that just absolutely trumped them. You put it into play and they kill it or they die. And Kessig Cagebreakers was the card that I found for that. You come halfway through the game, you've been casting Tracker's Instincts, your graveyard's starting to get full. Say they've wrathed a couple Thragtusks, maybe countered a Huntmaster or something, and the Cagebreakers comes in, they have to have like a spear and a pillar, or they're taking the full 25.
Yeah. I really like Tracker's Instincts in this deck. Obviously, it helps you to assemble these little combos you have, but you're also taking advantage of the graveyard interactions. You have Cagebreakers, you have Angels, so these are pretty relevant things to just have available going on. So definitely a cool use of the pseudo impulse, of which we have many in Standard.
Yeah, there are a lot.
Your sideboard has a variety of other cards. Any specific all-stars or additions for today you maybe didn't have tomorrow? Or didn't have yesterday?
The only change made from yesterday, I had a Zealous Conscripts on my board instead of the second Thundermaw Hellkite. The Hellkite's really good, and I actually originally had 2 in the main. But on Magic Online, there's like a bug where the Peddler and the Hellkite don't work properly together. So it became inconvenient for me to have multiple Hellkites in my deck. And when I was building my deck, I just looked at my Moto deck list. So I eschewed the second Thundermaw yesterday. Slayer's awesome because it kills Huntmaster and Olivia. But like Rakdos Return isn't really easy to beat. So you have a Slayer and Witchbane Orb, both cards that sort of target the Jund deck. And other than that, it's basically just Cagebreakers doing work all day.
Okay. Well, Lou, you're off to a pretty good start in today's Standard Open, hoping to improve upon yesterday's finish. So good luck.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for joining us.